Hey everyone, my name is Mohammed Albada, and this is my capstone project for the 5-day GenAI Intensive with Google. Quick heads up, I know the video quality isn't the greatest, but I have been swamped with school for the past couple of weeks, and I know all of my fellow students can relate to that. Anyway, the project is called PitchDeckGen, and what it does is it takes a single startup idea and turns it into a complete, structured, and investor-ready pitch deck, entirely powered by generative AI. Now, the inspiration for this project for me was seeing how many great startup ideas fall flat simply because they weren't communicated well. I wanted to build a tool that takes a rough idea, even just a single sentence, and turns it into a pitch that feels polished and pitch deck ready. This could be really useful for students, solo founders, or even hackathon teams who want to validate and express their ideas more clearly using GenAI. Now, before we dive into what exactly PitchDeckGen does and how it does it, we first have to install the required dependencies. So for this project, we've got the Gemini API and Google's text-to-speech. So that's going to take a second. And after that, we've got to import the necessary libraries. This includes GenAI library, talk-to-speech, visualization, and more. And then the last step for just setting everything up is just loading the Gemini API key securely, and all the instructions for that are shown right here. Now, the first actual step in the notebook is to enter the startup idea, and in this example, I put a platform that connects retired engineers with high school robotics clubs for mentorship. So let's load that in, and as you can see after that, I used few shot prompting to tell Gemini exactly what I wanted in my output and included examples. So here are the 3 examples. This helps guide the response into a clean JSON structured format that includes fields like problem, solution, target market, and more that relate to pitch decks. So after we load that in, we get to see what the pitch deck generation function looks like. And as you can see, there's a prompt. We tell Gemini, hey, you're a startup coach helping founders turn their raw idea into a pitch deck. And then we give some structure, advice, tips, so we could get a better output. And we include the examples mentioned earlier for few shot prompting and our idea. And with all that combined, we have the model generate our output. Now let's run this real quick and generate the pitch deck. And because of all of these specifications, we've got the JSON format exactly how I wanted it. And now specifically because of step 5, which displays the pitch in markdown format, both of these steps sort of make our output more clean, readable, and ready for feedback. So let's display that, and boom, there it is. So once the pitch is generated, what I do next is I have Gemini evaluate it, and I tell it that it's a venture capitalist. So I say you're a VC evaluating a pitch deck, and I give it some structuring advice, and I tell it to, assign each category from 1 to 5 on the categories clarity, novelty, and impact. So let's run this out. Now, if any section scores a 3 or lower in any of the 3 categories out of the 1 to 5 scale, I use Gemini again to rewrite just that section, hoping that it can increase to a 4 or a 5. And I loop this 5 times, and it ends early if all of the categories and sections are 4s or 5s before the 5 iterations complete. So we've got the refine if needed function, which we tell Gemini that they are a startup coach reviewing a pitch deck. And I told it specifically to focus on novelty because when developing this notebook, I noticed that it was struggling with that. So I made sure to really hone in on that. And yeah, let's just run that cell. Now the next step is to iterate and improve the pitch. And this is where the loop takes place, right? So let's run this. And there's the first iteration. You see there's the 5s, 4s, 4s, 3s, some 2s even, and it refines the pitch deck, right? So this is the evaluation score from our original pitch deck, and then this is the refined version. And after it refines it, it evaluates it again. So this is the evaluation for this, and what you may be able to tell is that it's slightly better. So it keeps improving on those sections, and it runs 5 times. So here's the last evaluation, and as you can see, the scores aren't perfect, but they are a lot better than previously. And at the end, it tells you, max iterations have been reached. So what you can do is review it manually, or you could just go up here. Sorry, it's a long scroll, but you can adjust the max iters value, and you can change that to like 10, 15, whatever you want. That's up to you. Now, this turned out to be a very powerful way to iteratively improve the content. The model wasn't just generating either. It was self-critiquing and improving off of that, illustrating one of the many great ways you can utilize GenAI. So now for the last part of this step, we set final pitch to equal current pitch, which is just the pitch created in the last iteration. And this is what we'll use moving forward instead of the raw output. Next, I ground the pitch using a RAG-like step. I hard-coded a few similar startups to provide context, and what this does is it helps the user sort of understand how their idea fits within their ecosystem. So if we just run that, and keep in mind, like it says up here, these could come from a database or a startup corpus in a full implementation, but it's just a simple implementation. Now, after running that cell, we go to the relate to similar startups function, which uses this and tells Gemini, hey, use these examples and highlight what makes this idea unique, with the idea being our pitch. And so we run that cell and simply utilize this and display it. Just give that a second. And voila, you've got the comparison with similar startups. There's a table, very helpful, and the unique aspects, shared trends and patterns, all that important information, very helpful for a startup. Now, after getting this very helpful information, I asked Gemini to estimate the market size and break it down into TAM, SAM, and SOM, which stand for Total Addressable Market, Serviceable Addressable Market, and Serviceable Obtainable Market. Very important information for a startup. Now, after we run this cell, which defines the estimate market function and tells Gemini, hey, you're a startup economist, tells it more about TAM, SAM, and SOM and how it works. And to generate that, we also define the parse and plot market function, which sort of just displays all of this information into a pie chart, which is very helpful for visualizing. So we run that. And now we just run both of these. And boom. So Gemini said that our TAM is 94.3%, our SOM is 0.9%, and our SAM is 4.7%. And this is an estimated market breakdown by the millions. Now, once the pitch content and the market visualization is locked in, I switch gears into the branding side of things. Now, in step 10, I use Gemini to suggest a visual theme for the pitch. So this includes a logo concept, a color palette, and many more. These generated ideas should help match the startup's mission and its target audience. It's a subtle but important touch. Especially for early stage founders, a clear and cohesive brand identity can really elevate how serious a pitch looks. So with this in mind, we can run the suggest visual branding function, or just define it for now. It says you're a branding expert, and it gives these ideas as mentioned earlier. And let's display that in Markdown. Just give that a second. And boom. So it's got the branding for robotics mentorship platform, logo concept, color palette, slide deck visual style, all this important branding information. Very, very helpful, especially for a startup. Now, in similar fashion, I'll actually go a step further and generate actual image prompts using Gemini. These prompts are structured so that they work well with AI image generators, such as Google's Imagen 3 or OpenAI's DALL-E. So for example, once we define this function, which simulates an image prompt, and we display the content, let's give that a second to load. Boom. We've got not only the logo prompt, but also the hero banner prompt. This type of prompt not only saves time, but helps bring the pitch to life visually. It's great for hero banners, slide backgrounds, or even thumbnails if you're planning on posting a startup publicly. Now, just for interactivity purposes, we can take this prompt now, and so for the logo, we could just take this to Gemini and paste it here and see what they generate. So we'll just give that a second. Keep in mind, it may not be perfect, but it'll definitely be helpful as to letting you know where you could start, or how you could go about creating the visuals for this. So boom, I mean, it's got some filler text, yeah, but if you ask me, that's a pretty sick logo, and even if you don't like the logo exactly, you can use it as a reference. So that's what I really like about that. And we could even do the same with the hero prompt, or the hero banner prompt. Might as well, we already did the logo, so paste that in there. That a second. Again, same spiel. May not be perfect, but can definitely help. So let that load up. I mean, that looks pretty cool. If I saw that, I'd be like, wow, looks like they're doing something, Now, last but certainly not least, I use Google Text-to-Speech to convert the pitch into audio. This is very useful for accessibility or embedding it into a pitch video or presentation. So that's why I included it. And if we go here, we got the create audio summary function, and let's create that. And the nice thing about this is, yes, it'll show up just on the Kaggle notebook, but you can also download it, and I'll show you how you could do that. Once it generates, which it just did, you could go here and go to the Kaggle working directory and give it a second, and there's your audio. You could install it right there, download, but let's just play this real quick.
Here is your startup pitch.
And one more thing, I did give a tip. Going to 1.25 or 1.5 speed does make it sound a little more human. It's something that I've noticed, so that could definitely help.
Problem: high school robotics clubs often lack access to experienced engineering mentors.
And that goes for the entire pitch, and I thought that was really cool. Now, as we've seen throughout the video, this project pulls together many GenAI capabilities, including structure generation, few-shot prompting, model evaluation, RAG-style grounding, visual prompting, and even audio narration. What I like the most is that it's not just about generating content. The model is evaluating its own work and improving on that through many passes. That's something I think we'll see more of in GenAI workflows moving forward. One of the most interesting things I've learned while creating this project is how sensitive models are to prompt structure and length. For example, in the pitch refinement section, improving the novelty, which is something I had struggled with, wasn't just making the pitch longer, which I noticed it would do a lot of the time. It had to do with being more specific, which is very helpful and made me realize how these models sort of work. Going forward, I'd love to add Google Slides export, neural voice narration, or even a simple front end so that it's more accessible to founders. Even in its current form though, I think PitchDeckGen does a great job at showing what's really possible when you use GenAI, not just to create content, but to elevate ideas. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out the entire notebook, and you can even check out the accompanying blog post all on Kaggle. Just to make things easy, I've linked both the notebook for the PitchDeckGen project and the accompanying blog post in the description below. If you want to connect or collab, please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or GitHub, which will also be linked down below in the description. I'd love to hear what you want to say. And thank you so much again for staying and watching. Have an amazing day.